Baldur's Gate 3 was a wake-up call.
I believe that we are being misled, misdirected, deceived. And I believe that it's being done on purpose. See, we've had this conversation around Baldur's Gate 3 and the state of AAA gaming for quite a while now. Different content creators that are weighing in, publications, as well as different journalists. Sometimes even tweets. But the focus of the conversation continues to shift, and it shifts away from the thing that is the most important part of the entire conversation, and I believe that that's actually being done on purpose. Whether some people know it or not.
What is it?
See, Baldur's Gate 3 was a wake-up call, but it's not the first time that we've seen this. We saw the same thing with Elden Ring, a game that was released to high praise, reviewed well, and that the players loved. However, it was also a game that was highly criticized by developers and journalists, judging the game on...
Well, of course they did that with Elden Ring, because it's the same thing where people want to, they want to have the hot take and say the thing that's good is bad because it makes them feel smart.
Simple things like UI or its lack of direction in the world. Regardless...
What was it criticized for? There were a number of developers who were criticizing Elden Ring for its UI, and they said the UI in Elden Ring was bad. Which, I don't even think it's that bad. I think it's fine, number one. And number two, I think that it's a developer call, it's a wake-up call for developers, because it's like, newsflash, people don't care about the UI that much. The UI doesn't really matter. If the gameplay sucks, then the gameplay sucks. That's it. The UI is an afterthought.
Players loved those things or not. Elden Ring was a game that was both innovative in its game design and also in its world design. But more than anything, it was a game that provided a significant amount of value to the player.
Yeah.
And a dense amount of value at that. And that's the word that we keep losing track of. Value. And that's the most important thing to us. Fast forward from Elden Ring to Baldur's Gate 3.
Okay.
A conversation has started about how AAA studios can't be held to the same standards as an independent studio. Journalists, PR agencies, and other institutions dogpiling on the consumer, trying to suppress our outrage in response to the state of the AAA industry. Us asking, why can't you make games like Larian does? And it's not as if we're trying to ask them to do anything new. We're just asking them to do what they used to do. Many of our favorite games, favorite franchises, started out as Larian. Passionate studios working on something they love. Making games that they love playing. Making something that others wanted to enjoy. Blizzard, Ubisoft, EA, Microsoft, Take-Two, Bungie, and more.
Yeah, that's actually true. Like, a lot of the reasons why people have, like, disdain or frustration for a lot of these companies is because they used to be good. Most people don't have, like, a lot of positive, or, like, they don't have a lot of negative feelings towards, I don't know, like, a lot of these, like, phone game companies, because they always made bullshit. And, oh, wow, they're making more bullshit. What a surprise. This is what they always do, right? You expect us to do work now? Didn't we already win? Yeah, exactly. People have like a, they're happy producing a like some fucking, $70 piece of shit with a battle pass that you have to buy cosmetics inside of.
To Bungie and more used to be known as the companies that you could always buy something from, and more times than not, it was going to be one of your greatest experiences and a game of value. Recently, I've seen a few others cover an article from GameDeveloper.com titled Yelling is Not Journalism by developer and journalist Brandon Sheffield. This is in response to Devin Laguirre's video on IGN talking about the shakeup that Baldur's Gate 3 has caused in the developer community. Now, the point of this video isn't to pick apart the article. However, I just want to highlight some of the language that's being used, because it shows just how...
Well, the person's being a fucking bitch, because I watched this video and he didn't yell at all in the video. So he's reframing what the person said in this video as being aggressive and bad. Because, like, yelling is bad, right? Yelling at people is bad. So then what you do is you say this person is yelling in order to communicate a negative tone for the person's words. It's hyperbolic, you dummy. Well, it is hyperbolic, but it's actually not hyperbolic. It's just simply not true. Like, if you say somebody's yelling and they're not, well, you're not being hyperbolic. You're just lying.
how far we're getting from the root cause of the issue that's upsetting the customer to begin with. And I'm wondering if we're being misdirected on purpose. Sheffield's article opens up with, there was an opportunity to give players context for why games release the way that they do. But instead, it was designed to incite anger directed at a few devs. So Sheffield opens up with a straw man, misrepresenting not only Devin Liguri and IGN's video, but also the consumer outrage at the same time. Trying to make us out to be the bad guy.
Well, we don't need to give a fuck about what the developers' problems are. It doesn't matter what their problems are. It's the same argument, ironically, that I just used with the mods. We are under no obligation as a consumer to give a fuck about the developer needing to make money or not, or their time schedule, or their process work order. This is completely fucking irrelevant to the customer. Like, you don't really care about how an iPhone gets made. You care about how much an iPhone costs. You don't care about how long it took to make a video game, or how many people had to work, or, oh, they did crunch time for this game or not. People, I bet, crunch their fucking asses off to make a ton of games that you love. Does that make you like them any less? Absolutely not. Who gives a fuck? Like, I'm so sick of developers and certain people, and streamers do this too, by the way, where they think that the viewer has to understand, oh, well, I need to make a living. It's like, no, if you want to do sponsor streams of phone games all of the time, then people aren't going to enjoy that. It's not the viewer's responsibility to provide you with a living. It's your responsibility to make content and then monetize that content. And if people don't want to bite whenever you put your fucking bait out there, then maybe get better bait. It's not, though, it's the consumer does not have that responsibility unless they are stealing the content, right? Like, you go to Walmart and you steal a banana, well, that's a problem. You just stole the fucking banana. But that's not what's happening here. It's crazy. The developers think that we give a fuck about their process. You think that we give a fuck about anything. This doesn't have anything to do with the product. The developer, how video games are made. I don't care how video games are made. Why the fuck would I give a shit about why a video... Oh, this is why the game is made. I don't care why. I don't care about, oh, this is the process. This is irrelevant to me. I care about the product. The process doesn't matter. It's crazy. So crazy that people think that anybody should give a fuck about how hard their job is or isn't. That this is a valid thing, that you want to guilt trip the customer because you have a hard job? Then fucking quit. Jesus Christ. How about tipping? If you don't like tipping and you're not making enough money tipping, it's the same thing.
As if we're just directing this at people that are innocent and shouldn't be to blame for anything. But they know that's not the case. Our anger, our outrage is directed at the companies, not at the guys that are working at the desk. Furthermore, this also goes to show
I think that gamers, like, they like the developers in most cases, right? Gamers don't want bad things to happen to developers. They don't hate the developers. And I don't think that they really like them either. Not really. They just want to play the game. Like, what the fuck are we turning this into some sort of, like, emotional relationship? You are making a product, and if the product is good, we will play the game, and that's it. And if it's not, then we won't play the game. It's that simple. How can they possibly think that it's anything more complicated?
The condescending nature of the industry to begin with. That we, the consumer, need to be educated on how games are made. And if we're educated, then we'll understand why we don't get finished products, why we have to pay full price for an unfinished
Completely
game,
irrelevant.
why we don't get value for the money that we spend. No, we don't need to be educated. You need to give us what we paid for.
Exactly. It's that simple.
That's it.
Yeah, we don't need to know or understand any... Thank you. Yes, so fucking true. Yeah, it's a parasocial relationship with the developer. Yeah, I don't give a fuck. Oh, wow, well, this is a problem. Like, I think that people can and people are understanding. You want to hear a great example of people that are understanding? The Endwalker release of Final Fantasy XIV. If Blizzard had released a game like that, people would still be talking about it 10 years from now. But with Final Fantasy, nobody really gave a fuck because they understand it's an international global chip shortage. And at the end of the day, it is what it is. And they trust that the developers are doing their best. They trust that the company is working as hard as it can. And there are just world, problems that sometimes you can't get around. And I think that's reasonable. It's the same reason why people with Baldur's Gate 3, a lot of people said the last act in the game wasn't really that great. But nobody really gives a shit about it that much because they feel like the rest of the game is okay. It's, again, a value proposition. And if you're not meeting the value proposition, then it's a problem. It's about goodwill. Yes, it is. Like, it's a currency. Like, the goodwill that companies have and they build up with the player base is a currency. Blizzard used to have it. I think Riot has it now. Rockstar 50-50. Larian absolutely has it. Final Fantasy Creative Business Unit 3 definitely fucking has it. From Software has it. And so that's something that happens, is you need to have that goodwill because you will have problems. And the companies that build up that goodwill by working hard and actually not just asking for fucking excuses, there will be things that will happen because life happens and video games are not exempt from that because video games are made by people. So, sure. But the players understand that.
How is this acceptable in any other industry? You don't go to
AAA studios. Somebody said in chat, AAA studios want us to feel bad for them for selling us unfinished, buggy-ass games. Like, I give a fuck, bro. Like, I don't care. Care about how long you have to work in the office. Who gives a fuck about that? Bro, you're telling a fucking plumber, a construction worker, a teacher, a policeman that your job is so fucking hard because you have to work 80 hours a week? They do that every fucking week. Shut the fuck up. And it's not that your job isn't legitimate, but you don't see them crying about it either. And if they were crying about it, you'd probably tell them to shut the fuck up too.
A 5-star restaurant, only get half of your food, and then you're expected to be understanding because, oh, well, there's only one cook that night. You don't go to buy a new car and you're told that, oh, we're still working on the seats and the radio. Don't worry, we'll release those to you later.
Yeah, well, actually, to be fair, they will. And, recently had that issue with Tesla does something like that too. But like, for example, Chipotle. Sometimes I go to Chipotle, there's like 2 guys working there, and it takes a while. I'm not mad at the 2 guys that are working there, right? I'm not going to shit on them. Like, they're doing their best. But like, I'd be mad at Chipotle.
Why is it the expectation that we must still pay full price for a game and also be understanding of the pressures of deadlines, funding, and investor constraints? Furthermore, why is our focus continuously being reverted to the polish of a game?
Yeah.
Rather than the value that the customer receives from playing it?
Exactly. Like, this is the problem that AAA games have. AAA games and the development studios have this fixation about caring about things that people don't give a fuck about. They care about how a character's mouth moves. They care about if a role that a person does is as realistic as a role that a person in real life would do. They care about the UI of the game. They care about, let me think, like having different types of like bullshit options in a game. These are not things that players find value in. And AAA dev studios, I think, are spending a bigger and bigger percentage of their money and time focusing on things that have value to reviewers and not to gamers. The gameplay is what matters. Recognizable actors. Yes, I could not give less of a fuck if we have a recognizable actor in a video game. In fact, I think I would even not like it that much because it is actively taking away from my immersion whenever I see a character in the game that I know is a real person. Wasted budget. Yes, it is.
You can go to a 5-star restaurant, receive half of the food that you would elsewhere, and still get the value for the food that you paid for.
Half is an overstatement.
We see this in indie, single, and AA games time and time again. Baldur's Gate 3 is a $60 game, yet it provides the customer with far more value than many of the games that the AAA industry has released over the last few years. And it doesn't ask...
Well, it's also not even a $60 game. There are people that play Honkai Star Rail, and they spend hundreds of dollars on the game, and they're not malding about it because they feel like they're getting value from the game. They're getting something out of the game. Now, you might think they're stupid or whatever, but that is true. And the truth is that whenever people are getting value out of the game, like Genshin is the same way, then they're not going to complain. It's the same as World of Warcraft.
Us for any more money or make any excuses. Even when the conversation first broke out on Baldur's Gate over on Twitter, again, the discussion was boiled down to polish and scope rather than valuable experiences.
Yeah.
Why did the players love Elden Ring? It's because they felt that their time was valued playing it.
Yep.
They felt like they got their money worth out of the money that they spent on the game. They had fun playing the game. Time and time again, we're told these PR lines from publishers and AAA developers. We're sorry. We're listening. We hear you. But they're not.
Well, it doesn't matter if they are or not. Because, like, most people aren't going to see the apology. Most people play the game and it's bad, and they're like, well, I'm not going to play that game again. They're not following this company on Twitter and, oh, I hope they say sorry to me. I spent my money on this and it wasn't very fun. No, they're just like, well, I played this game. It kind of sucked. I don't know if I'm going to play the next one, man. Like, that's it. That's really what most people do. You think most people that are playing these games are following these companies on Twitter? No.
If they were listening, then they would understand that we're not doing this just because we're trying to complain. No, we're doing this because we want to save them. They're the makers of some of our favorite games of all time. But the problem is that the more profit-driven that they become, the further they get away from the passion of making games in the first place. It's like a gem collector turned mining outfit. They used to do it for the love of the gems that they were collecting, but now they're just mining for every resource they possibly can get out of it.
Yeah, that's about
now
right.
All they're going to be left with is rocks until the eventual collapse.
I guess so. He's been playing Starfield.
So the mine. Sheffield goes on to explain the rocks that we get, saying, in abstract, here's a big part of it. Games release in imperfect states because devs either run out of money or shareholders of their parent company mandate that the game must come out in a certain window.
That's true. He's right.
Which devs have no control over.
That's true.
They run out of money trying to make the best game possible in the least amount of time. Devs rarely control their own budget and are trying to make as much cool stuff as they can with the time that they're allotted.
Okay.
In short, for one reason or another, they are often forced to start selling the game in order to pay for the completion of the game. This has been done through DLC, patches, early access, and yes, even microtransactions for ages because of rising expectations for AAA and because big studios are beholden to financial year results and reporting to their investors. Devs burn through their life force trying to make this happen, and it's upsetting to see this brought up with absolute incuriosity.
I don't care. I want to play a good game. It's not that I'm not curious. I don't care. I know I know this. It doesn't matter. How many of you guys own one of these? Do you guys have one of these squares or rectangles here? Yeah. How much do you want to bet that part of the reason why this is made and this, like this exists in your hand is because of something that you would consider unethical? Probably like 100% chance. Yeah, 100%. Do you give a fuck? Do you care even in the slightest? You do? Would you spend $100 extra to buy a phone like this that was ethically made? People say yes. I think the answer is no. The truth is, some people, I'm sure some people are saying yes and they believe it. But I think that, things like Nike prove that is the minority. Anyway, It is not my responsibility. Like, it's the same as like a streamer, right? I'll actually use a great example for this. People were saying like, oh, I miss whenever Asmon used to do like these events, right? Like, remember this? I was saying like, oh, well, and I was telling people, I was like, oh, this was really stressful for me. I was very upset doing this. This was very like upsetting. And it was like, I would get anxiety and like, who cares? Right? From a viewer perspective, who cares? We don't care, Baldy. Just play WoW again. Well, I don't want to. That's nice. Just do it anyway, though. Yeah. And I know people care, right? You care. And I appreciate that. But you also still want to see the stream be good. And if the stream isn't good, you're not going to watch. And that's ultimately what it comes down to. That's what really matters. Not this other shit. We don't care about the profit incentives of the company. We don't care about quarterly deadlines. We don't care about crunch time. We care about playing the game. And the reason why is because we are the customer, and we're not your union, we're not your HR department, and we're not the fucking government. You've got a problem with that, take it up with one of them. And stop guilting us into accepting subpar dog shit.
And this is it. This is exactly what I'm talking about. This misunderstanding that we, the consumer, blame the developers that are working at the desks when in fact it's the company who we direct our dissatisfaction towards.
Yeah, like we actually, yeah, like who actually thinks it's the individual developers doing shit wrong? And I'm sure that in a lot of these cases, there are individual developers that work at these companies who shouldn't be working there, who are fucking incompetent completely. Right? We've seen it. But I don't think this is a general sentiment that people have.
We see it for what it is. Productivity being pushed by overpaid CEOs and the shareholders they answer to that want to provide as little value as possible to the consumer for as cheaply as possible while also selling it for as much money as they possibly can. Now, even Sheffield is sold on the corporate narrative that it is our responsibility as the consumer to soak up the full game price so that they can finish making a full game later. Just
you have to pay us for the game so we can make it for you.
Appease investors, make up for their poor planning, their misuse of resources, and their lack of vision within their leadership. Moreover, why are we giving microtransactions a pass? Like, oh, guys, you know, it's totally wholesome. They're just doing it because they need to be able to fund the game and, you know, keep the servers up and things like that, when we know that's not the case. Otherwise, if it was, then why are they using such manipulative tactics when they're using microtransactions in the first place?
Well, things to make as much money as possible. Like, I don't have a problem with microtransactions in games that are like just like live service games. Like, I think that if you have a live service game that's continuously updated and there are new content patches that come out for the game, you either have to pay for it through a subscription fee or through microtransactions. Like, that's the reality. I think that whenever you buy a game, you are entitled to everything that was in that game at the time that you bought it. Everything beyond that, that's something new. I am reasonable.
Like loot boxes, locking valuable items behind battle passes, making some of the best cosmetics in the game only purchasable from the shop. They know the tricks that they're doing, obfuscating different currencies within the game from our actual dollar to make sure we don't know how things actually add up.
I don't know how that's legal. I still don't know how they actually allow people to do that legally. Because, like, what you're really doing, like, there is no consumer, like, why do they turn everybody's money into some other currency? They do it explicitly so people don't know how much money they're spending. How is it fucking legal that you can have a practice that exists for the sole purpose of making customers not understand how much money they're spending and it not be deliberately disingenuous?
If it was being done for such wholesome reasons, then why are you implementing it in such an unwholesome way? I think that's a word. If that's the case, then how about the $1.2 billion that Activision Blizzard made in 2021 on microtransactions alone? Did that money go into making Diablo 4 a complete game? Or Overwatch, for that matter? No, it didn't. I think Xbox perfectly...
Well, it definitely didn't. I actually think that was primarily King, which does like Candy Crush and stuff. I don't know if that was like Blizzard. I don't know if they actually made a distinction in the earnings reports about microtransaction money from Blizzard explicitly. I'm not sure.
Encapsulates what's wrong with the
I could
gaming
be wrong
industry
about that, though.
and
I
how
don't
it's
know.
losing focus. Don't get me wrong. I love Xbox. I love Game Pass.
Gears
I
of
think it's
War.
one of the best things that the entire industry could do for consumers. However, Xbox is putting all of their focus into how they deliver games and stay ahead of the market rather than making sure that they are delivering high-quality games, great games, and games of value. They chased the smoke of live service titles pressuring Arcane to make Redfall. They neglected the oversight of 343 working on Halo Infinite, just assuming that they would get it right, even after consecutive failures to capture the magic.
Microsoft should kick them to the curb. I'm just going to say it. They should completely fucking kick them to the curb. They fucked up 4, they fucked up 5, they fucked up Infinite. 3 strikes, you're out. Fucking fire them. Pay Bungie to do it again. Pay somebody else to do it again. It is a joke that a company can release 3 duds and somehow they want people to feel sorry for them whenever they had fucking layoffs. They should lay off the entire fucking company. You can't make a good game. You tried 3 times, you failed. It's been 10 years. Quit it.
Of Halo. Think about that. They let Halo become an afterthought in the gaming industry. One of the most influential games of all
Halo was the game. From 2001 to 2008, Halo was definitive. Halo was the fucking game.
time. The game that popularized FPS controls on a controller. A game that at one time...
Halo brought online gaming to the console audience. Halo 2
was a pop culture phenomenon. And now what happened? How did that happen? Because they were more concerned with becoming the Netflix of gaming.
Yep.
And it's not just Xbox whose focus has shifted. It's almost every single AAA company. Epic Games doesn't even make games anymore. They just run off of the fumes of Fall Guys, Fortnite, and Rocket League microtransactions. EA pimps out every single game in their library outside of the rare gems like Jedi Survivor, It Takes Two, and the Dead Space remake. Ubisoft sells XP boosts in single-player open-world games.
Did they really do that? Are they really selling experience boosts in single-player open-world games? Is that actually true? Oh my god. That is so fucking funny, man. Valve does the same thing as Epic, though? Well, I mean, Epic Games is like, I mean, they're really like... I don't have a problem with Epic Games. Because Fall Guys and Fortnite are good games. I think they're good games. I'm fine. Same with Valve. Because the game's good.
And don't even get me started on Activision Blizzard. That horse is beat so dead, so hard, that they call bug fixes Season 2 in Diablo 4.
Yeah. Yeah, it is, it do be like that, huh?
So while these companies continue to release unfinished games because they can't meet different deadlines that are set by their investors or time constraints or money constraints or whatever it is, while they continue to lose focus because they're paying attention to more profit-driven incentives than anything else, we, the consumer, have to soak up their misdeeds by paying into microtransactions, battle passes, and worse.
You know what a really good example of this is? KFC and Chick-fil-A. KFC, the quality of KFC, let's be honest, guys, it's not 1998 anymore. And I will even say that in the last 2 years, KFC has gotten a lot better. Trust me, I know. But Chick-fil-A, over time, has just delivered better chicken, a better product that's more consistent. And that's just the truth. And after a while, People don't give a fuck about, oh, well, you know, like, it's hard to work at a fast food restaurant, and, you know, this is an issue. Nah, bro, like, you don't have to pop pies again? What do you mean you don't have any wings? The Pepsi machine's broken again? What about last week? It was broken last week. Oh, you just didn't want to turn it. Yeah, I'm going to Chick-fil-A. That's all there is to it. Because at the end of the day, like, I know that it's not the person who worked at KFC that day. It's not their fault KFC has a problem. They didn't do this. But it doesn't matter. Because I'm still going to go to Chick-fil-A. You see what I'm saying? Like, if you get my local KFC's drive-thru is closed every day, somehow it's broken? Yeah. Isn't the consumer part of the blame? They enable these companies to do this by buying into the pay-to-win? They are. But then the companies blame the consumer when they don't. You're absolutely right that the customer is to blame.
And that's supposed to make our games better. But by the time any of these games actually do get to a playable state, or, God forbid, make them enjoyable...
That fucking... The forbidden word. Only spoken of in legend. Feature complete.
They're already almost coming out with the next game anyway. That doesn't seem like us helping to support them make better games. That just seems like us being taken advantage of.
Yeah.
That seems exactly like the consumer being programmed to continue to pay for things that we're not getting our money out of. And it's making it an expectation.
And also, like, we're not getting our money out of. Everybody has to make their own personal value judgment. Like, for me personally, I got my money out of New World, and I got my money out of Diablo 4. I don't feel like I wasted $70 on Diablo 4 at all. I leveled the character up to 100. I played the first season for, like, I don't know, like, at least probably 50, 60, 70 hours. I got my money's worth out of that game. But there are other people out there who didn't. What about Starfield? Bro, I played the fuck out of that piece of shit. I spent 52 hours on that hellhole. Yeah, I got my money's worth for it. Absolutely. Was it fun hours? Yeah, I don't feel like I wasted my money on it. No, it's all right. It's a 5 or a 6. It is what it is. But you know what game I feel a lot better for buying? This one. I feel way better about buying this one. I felt really good about buying this one too. I'd do it again. And whenever I bought, apparently I bought this one. I didn't even know that. I feel good about buying this one too. And I felt so good about buying this one, I bought the first one. So, yeah.
How many times over the last few years have you expected a game to actually work day one on release without any issues? If you're anything like me, it's a flip of the coin.
It's a flip of the coin, both sides are tails. But I feel like, I don't know, like, Diablo 4 on day one went pretty well for me. Dragonflight on day one went pretty well for me. Overwatch 2 was horrible. Elden Ring, like a lot of the single player games are all fine. Armored Core was totally fine. I feel like actually the real problem is with online games. Like, I don't think that you can compare like a single player game to an online, like a fucking MMO. Like, those are two completely different things. Because most games work as... Yes, you can. Well, you can't really, though. Like, it doesn't make sense to compare the two.
And when the coin landed on heads and it ended up actually working properly, it was a surprise. And I think to myself, maybe they got it figured out. Mm-hmm. But we know that's not the case. If Elden Ring was the flash of lightning, then Baldur's Gate 3 was the thunder that followed. A classic turn-based RPG dominated gaming headlines. It turned heads and it held attention. Reviewers applauding the game as a resounding success despite the lack of polish in the later third of the game. Why? Is the game that good?
You want to know why the reviewers... I'm gonna let y'all know the real reason. Why did reviewers say the game was great despite the lack of polish in the last third of the game? Because the reviewers never got there. You know it, I know it, and everybody knows it. They played 10 minutes of probably 4 hours of the first part of the game, and then they reviewed the game. That's why they thought that.
That it's so far above everything else that we've ever seen? Well, that's a matter of opinion. Personally, I think it's one of the greatest games that I've ever played. But I enjoy tactical combat, high fantasy, and optional multiplayer. But why did it reach such a wider audience? Simple. Widespread consumer dissatisfaction. Players are absolutely exhausted of live service models, in-game shops, buying skins, microtransactions everywhere in the entire game. Unimaginative design.
I think also, like, one of the reasons why it's worse now is because money's tighter now than it was a year ago. Money's tighter now than it was 2 years ago. Like, inflation is a bitch. And so people are going to be much more stingy with their money. Like, just as an example, like, a lot of sponsorships for, like, streams and everything have gone down. And you know why? It's because people are spending less money in general. For whatever reason. Thanks, Obama. True.
Games constantly stealing the mechanics of another game. And while that's completely fine in some different ways, I feel like every open world game is an Ubisoft game now. You wonder why we love Elden Ring or Baldur's Gate 3 or Tears of the Kingdom. It's just because they're well-made, good games. It's as simple as that. There's no strings attached. It's not some crazy thing that you need to be able to divine. I've seen 5 or 6 different apologies from developers or publishers over the last year, just within 2023.
Only 5 or 6?
Trying to figure out, guys, we hear you, we're listening, we'll fix things, we promise. No, you're not listening, because if you were, then you would understand why.
You want to hear a good apology? Was the Wayfinder apology. Whenever they came and they said, guys, the store shop prices, they sucked. Hey, yo, we fucked up. That's our bad. We're going to change it, and we're going to give everybody refunds. All right. Yeah, that was good. Great. All right. Reasonable. The RuneScape apology. Guys, we see you guys don't like the new battle pass. We're going to change the whole thing. We're going to give people refunds for it too. Yeah, our bad. Like, we fucked up. Sorry about this. Reasonable.
We are praising these games in the first place. It's just that they're really good games. That's it. And we just want you to go back to doing what you used to do, which is making really good games.
Yeah.
You know, the thing is that they can't. And the reason why they're apologizing, the reason why they're running around with their heads cut off is because they are trying to constantly figure out ways to be able to match the monetization of the game with how the player is going to play the game, how we're going to enjoy it. Actman brought it up in a video of his, where he talked about how Diablo 4, everything in the game has to be scheduled in a certain way, how fast we level up, how fast we find items, how fast we find gear that we like that looks on us. All of those things have to match the monetization, the battle pass, all of those things. They all have to coalesce and combine. That's incredibly difficult to do, especially when you're trying to make something that's actually enjoyable to play. Earlier,
I think that the monetization, it's probably an issue of the tail wagging the dog, where, like, the monetization is a small part of the game fundamentally, but from the developer perspective, it is very large.
Talked about how different institutions and publications or journalists were pushing back on the gamers and our outcry and our outrage.
Best example of that is Lost Ark.
How they were dogpiling on us. Dogpiling on our needs and the narrative of the pushback that we have against the profit incentives of these companies and how we want better games and more complete games.
I need to take a piss. I'll be right back.
But incentives of these companies and how we want better games and more complete games.
I think a great example of this is Starfield. Starfield is not as bad as people make it out to be, But I think that whenever you compare it to Baldur's Gate 3 and Elden Ring, it is. And I think that's an example of people's standards just being a lot higher.
According to the business research company, the global microtransaction market will grow from $67.9 billion in 2022 to $76.6 billion in 2023.
I need to make a phone game.
Which is over 30% of the estimated $200 billion the gaming market will earn in 2023. It's really profitable being anti-consumer. Yeah. Especially when you start cost-cutting and you're also not held responsible for the state in which your games are released. I mean, they have turned our understanding that creative projects are difficult to make and are iterative processes in their design and made it into a normalization that we must buy unfinished products and wait for them to patch it or release more content in the future. All the while, they're stealing resources from places where they need to go. And what customers really end up paying for is the $80 to $100 million.
Just what we needed. Thank God. Yep.
That they're spending on marketing budgets for these AAA games.
Uh-huh.
And it really doesn't help that our regulators, those in government, aren't working.
Are dinosaurs that can't use email and shouldn't even be in office. They should be in nursing homes or possibly some of them potentially in jail for taking money from lobbying.
To protect the customer, mostly because either they're too old to understand or because they're incentivized not to through lobbying.
It's not because I don't think it's because they're too old to understand. I bet Bernie Sanders fucking understands it. I bet people like Warren Buffett understand it, and they're older than most of the other people that people say are too old to understand it. No, I don't think it's because they're too old. I think somebody like, bro, I know plenty of people that are old as fuck that know stuff. No, it's because they're stupid. They're stupid and they don't care.
Being to protect the interests of investors and these large publicly traded institutions. Luckily, there are some countries like the Netherlands who are moving to ban things like loot boxes. And what's great about that is it makes it really difficult for these companies to be able to release their games in, well, just about anywhere once other people start giving them even the slightest amount of pushback.
Exactly. And once enough countries make it illegal to have certain monetization practices, then those monetization practices will no longer be profitable to design. And companies will no longer make games like that because there will just be so few markets that they can monetize in. That's just what happens.
By prioritizing profits, the makers of our favorite games, our most beloved games of all time, are losing touch with their customers. While they may not see the immediate effects of this because the silent majority continues to buy their games and interact with microtransactions, we're seeing a slow shift spurred by the vocal minority. When you see a classic RPG based on Dungeons and Dragons explode onto the market, breaking all-time records on Steam, you're seeing a greater shift in the market. Social media is much stronger than the AAA industry. Some of the most popular videos on YouTube and TikTok are those complaining about the state of Diablo 4, Overwatch, Warzone.
Dude, I don't know what the fuck happened, but I'm really popular on TikTok. Did you guys know that? Like, somebody linked me this, and like, I'm getting millions of views on TikTok. How the fuck did that happen? I didn't even know there were people that were over 30 that even went on that website.
Destiny, 2K, and more. The virality of that movement goes past the vocal minority and into the wider market. As economic strife and rising inflation make it more difficult for people to buy luxury goods, they're far more careful with their spending. They do their research. And when a simple Google search reveals how people just don't trust your game or your company, customers are far less likely to make purchases regardless of how you try to manipulate.
I love how, like, the top result, Blizzard is dead, Diablo 4 is bad. It's not a game. Yeah, and also, like, the review bombing for that definitely helps.
The market through nostalgia or through marketing. I brought this up many a times on my podcast, which is every Sunday, 2 p.m. PST, right here on YouTube, by the way. But Crypto games never stood a chance, and they never will. And the reason why is because
Crypto games will be successful, but they won't be successful because they're crypto games. The reason why crypto games aren't successful is because the only selling point of a crypto game is that it's a crypto game. I think that people actually at this point, I'm not sure. Remember that whole Creator League thing that happened? Remember that? And people, I think people just don't want to deal with the blockchain. Like, customers and consumers are just not interested at all with anything that's on the blockchain.
Are based on monetization. No matter what they do, they have to start from the monetization first because, well, it's in the name. It's a crypto game. It's not a game.
Yeah.
It's a crypto game. And because of that, they'll never actually be anything. Because what great game do you ever remember that they ever started from how are they going to sell it? How are they going to monetize it?
Yeah.
The inspiration for most games that we've all enjoyed have always been somebody's great idea that it was something that they themselves were going to have fun playing.
Genshin? Well, that's not anything special, right? I mean, like, that's not... Yeah,
a valuable experience that they would enjoy. And that's the whole point of this video. That's the whole point of what this conversation should be, is that we just want to have valuable experiences and have our time valued for playing the games that we get.
Yeah.
Now, I've seen a lot of people try to parse out and say, you know, I give $1 per hour value for the games that I play.
Sure.
You know, if it's a $70 game and I get 70 hours out of it, then yeah, you know, that was a good game. No, it doesn't necessarily mean that. Did you actually value the time that you spent in that game? Will you remember it? Was it enjoyable? There's tons of games that you can spend $60 and $70 on and not enjoy. Doesn't mean you got your money out of it. It's not how that works.
Yeah, I think that's true. In general, like for me, I feel like I played some games for like way less than that, and I got my money's worth out of the game. I think it really just depends on the individual, though. Like, for some people, they probably feel that way about Starfield or Diablo 4. For other people, they don't. And it's got to be like a personal opinion. I think that's what it comes down to. I'd spend $60 on a 20 to 25 hour game any day of the week. Good. Then go buy Armored Core 6.
I just want good games. That's all we want. We just want our time valued. We want the money that we spend for the game, but we want it to actually mean something in the first place. It's really not that complicated, and I don't understand how it's so hard to be able to communicate that to the developers in all of these different conversations that we've had.
It's not that it's hard to communicate it to them. It's because they don't want to listen.
I want to experience what it was like playing Halo for the first time again, or adventuring in Elden Ring, or Ocarina of Time. It's really not that hard. And I don't understand why they're making it that hard. Other than...
Well, you see, you have to pay the popular hip-hop artists to make a song about your game, and then pay recognizable celebrities to be in the game or talk about it. So we don't have any money left over to make the game work, or actually to add game content. Because all of those things occur before you buy the game. So that's why they're valuable, because they get people to buy the game.
Want to make it seem that way so that we just keep giving them money and that they can take advantage of us.
John Cena.
And if that's the case, and that's what they're going to continue to do, and that's the path that they want to choose to take, that's fine. But they will fail. Because we will go places to actually get valuable experiences. Your Call of Duty will stop being purchased once somebody makes a game that has a far more valued design.
Well, look at BattleBit. I think BattleBit's a great example.
Something that the players enjoy more and doesn't take advantage of them. Same thing goes for RPGs, ARPGs, strategy games, puzzle games. It doesn't matter. Every single genre that's out there, the next time that there's a game that comes out from somebody else that's not taking advantage of the players, that provides a better experience because you have lost the vision of what it's like to make good games and not think about how you're going to drain the player for every cent they have, you'll lose business. And if you continue you'll lose yours.
I think that's what will happen in the long term. But the problem is that a lot of these companies, especially the ones that have like the really big like name brand recognition, like Blizzard, for example, it's very hard for them to lose that awareness because there are so many people out there that they just know of them. Like, it's not something that happens in like 5 years. It's something that happens after 25 years. I'm trying to think of like a game company that just over time has become irrelevant and now nobody gives a shit about them anymore. Like, and they come out with a new game and actually nobody cares. BioWare? Yeah, maybe BioWare. THQ? Maybe, yeah, I don't hear about them anymore at all. Ubisoft? I think that people still care about Ubisoft. Because the thing is that if people don't like you, they still care about you. But after a while, people actually just don't care about you at all to not like you in the first place.
That's all I got today. I just wanted to kind of clear this up. I wanted to talk about this for a little bit. I hope you guys enjoyed the video. I got some more articles and stuff that I'm going to probably cover maybe next week. I have a review for Baldur's Gate 3 that I'm going to do. I'm calling it a casual gamer's review. That's my thing. I'm going to be the casual gamer. Make sure you guys follow me on Twitch if you guys haven't before. Subscribe to the channel if you guys haven't. I hope you guys have been enjoying the videos lately. I hope you guys have been having a great day.
Yeah, this is a good video.
Have a great day. Stay cool, stay righteous, stay safe, my friends, and yeah. Peace.
Family.
Yeah, I think that was a good video. I hope that more people talk about the reality that people don't really give a fuck about what a developer's concerned. Like, they don't care about what it's like to be a developer. They don't care about what it's like to work at this company. They don't care about how long you have to work. This is his channel. If you guys want to give him a sub, it's Legendary Drops. I've watched a number of his videos before in the past, and I figured I'd watch this one. I think it's really good, and I just wish that more people talked about this because I am kind of sick of getting guilt-tripped by these different teams and these people that work at this company. If you're releasing subpar garbage, then I don't care why. If it's subpar garbage, then it's subpar garbage. That's it.